Have you ever been just chilling at home and suddenly you have an incredible idea for a project? Oh shit! You get up, run to grab your notebook, and start writing about this immediately. The more you think about it, the more exciting it seems to get. You start putting hours and hours of research and work into this new project, and then it hits you. My idea sucks. What happened here? How did you get from this to this? How did you get from thinking you've had your best idea to thinking that you're not good enough to even try it?
Well, for me, this all happens because of perfectionism.
According to the American Psychology Association, perfectionism is characterized by the tendency to demand of others or of oneself an extremely high or even flawless level of performance in excess of what is required by the situation. And according to a study published in 2017, this tendency seems to be more and more common over time.
Over the last 25 years, we have seen perfectionism rise at an alarming rate.
But this doesn't mean we're becoming more accomplished. It actually has the opposite effect.
And at the same time, we are seeing more mental illness among young people than ever before. In this new visual culture, the appearance of perfection is far more important than the reality.
I've been a perfectionist all my life. In fact, I believe a lot of us are. But this was something that I used to consider as good, as the common characteristic among successful people. And whenever I start a new video or start a new project, I always feel this inner expectation of having to get it perfectly at the first try. To achieve my goals, I have to do it perfect. I have to do everything just right. And if I fail, then I'm a failure. But only quite recently, I've realized about the detrimental effects of this tendency.
We live in a society where metrics and rankings are used as a tool to measure our accomplishments and success. In a time where we look at grades, views, likes, money, and weight scales to know how well we're doing in our lives. They shape how we judge others, and most importantly, how we judge ourselves.
But I don't think those metrics are exactly the problem, it's the way we perceive them. We think to ourselves, if I don't achieve this specific thing, then I'm nothing more than a failure. It seems like we exclusively celebrate our own achievements and we hide any unexpected flaws or imperfections because we're ashamed of them. And no matter how much effort we put into something, these efforts don't mean anything to us if we don't get the end results we anticipated from the beginning. So, what am I trying to say? Does this mean that perfectionism is all bad? Well, I think it's a bit more complicated than that. There are certainly areas or times in our lives where striving for perfection can be beneficial. The problem lies when perfectionism takes over our entire lives. It's when we get so scared of the idea of being a failure that it completely shapes the way we behave and live. It becomes this self-defeating way of living life because we're in the constant pursuit of an unattainable perfection. We start holding these unrealistic expectations on how we should look, how our body should be, how we should behave with others, and what we need to own or achieve to even feel like a worthy person. And holding these unrealistic expectations leads to greater levels of anxiety because we're constantly scared of failing at anything, which is completely impossible to not do during our lives.
We can take as an example one of my documentaries, where Sabrina shares the frustration for not being able to gain weight and not getting the body she wanted to have.
It affected me for many years, I can say only till a few months back, just because I wanted to be something that my body wasn't doing. And it got me upset because whenever I looked at myself, I'm like, oh, it's just not happening. And then because it wasn't happening, I wouldn't eat. And then because I wouldn't eat, I'd lose weight, more weight than what I had. And then obviously people start pinpointing and, oh, your face has gone in, you haven't got, meat on your body, you need that. And I'm like, oh, I'd try. And then I'd try again and it just wouldn't work.
And so what do we do when things don't seem to go the way we wanted them to? We quit, we procrastinate.
What first starts as I want to try this new idea, it quickly becomes, if I can't make it this way, then I just won't do it. Perfectionism makes you question why even bother trying something if you won't accomplish it as fast or as easily as you wanted to. Why even going to the gym if I can't look like that model? Why put so many hours into a new video if I don't get a specific number of views? Why start this new project if I'm not sure if it will even be successful? Why try if I might fail?
Even making this video has taken me such a long time because I was constantly being put down by the fear of not knowing if what I'm sharing is even valuable for any of you. Every time I would research about perfectionism, I would find many other experts on this topic that have much more knowledge than me. And so an idea for a video that seemed quite simple and interesting in the beginning, it suddenly became this overwhelming task that I wasn't sure if I could do anymore.
And so I procrastinated and procrastinated and procrastinated, which led to even more frustration with myself because I wasn't doing anything.
And that's the problem of perfectionism. It's the enemy of innovation. We become so averse to mistakes that we stop taking any risks and we make it harder for ourselves to reach our own goals. And so what can we do? What can we change in our behavior or thoughts that will help us deal with this constant inner expectation of doing things perfectly? Well, as you can imagine, there's no such thing as a perfect solution. In fact, I still struggle a lot with this. But there are a few ideas I've been trying to implement in my life that I feel that are quite helpful for me, and they might be helpful for you too. So the first one, and I'm sure you probably have heard this many times now, is that done is better than perfect.
Take as an example my documentaries. When I started, my documentaries weren't that great. There were so many things that I had no idea about and I made so many mistakes, but the only way of improving was to keep making more. I could have just kept working and polishing a documentary over and over again until I felt that it was finally perfect. But I don't think I would have gained as much knowledge as I now have if I hadn't continued to create new ones.
Are my documentaries perfect now? No, not at all. In fact, the more I learn, the more it seems like this perfectionism tendency affects me. But whenever I feel like I'm getting stuck, I like to look back at my own work and see how much I have improved by making mistakes. If you get lost in the constant tweaking of things, you might not ever finish and publish the exact thing you've been working for so long.
But now you say, oh, great. So now I just need to make a bunch of crap and I'll magically get closer to my goals.
No, of course not. And that's related to my next advice. Create deadlines.
When you start your project, make a deadline on when you realistically think you'll have it finished. The deadline can fluctuate a bit as you go, but always have it in mind while you're making something. This will allow you to have enough time to make the best work you can without working endlessly on the same thing.
And you won't just create a bunch of crap, because now we'll be focused on making the best thing you can with the time you have. And as a bonus tip, make yourself accountable by telling a friend or a family member about your project and your deadline. This can really help you stay on track and be a very powerful motivator. Also, like I said before, perfectionism can turn a simple task into something overwhelming. When this happens, I like to deconstruct this major task into other small ones.
By taking one step at a time, this massive thing in my head won't seem as scary anymore, and I'm able to enjoy the creation of my project much more.
But the most important thing for me is to keep reminding myself that it's okay to fail. Failures and flaws are an integral part of our lives. To learn how to walk, we have to fall a lot of times. To learn how to talk, we just say a bunch of gibberish until we get the first word right. And so, why would we expect to move through life perfectly? Looking back, I don't really remember those times where I nailed things at the first try. Instead, I remember all those times I just failed miserably and I've managed to learn something new from it. If we try to live without failing, we're just not living at all. So instead of avoiding mistakes at all times, I now try to celebrate them and use them as an opportunity to learn something new. It's much easier said than done, obviously, but hey, it's part of the process. After all, there's really nothing more human than being imperfect. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.
If you'd like to support this project, you can do it by either sharing my work or donating at patreon.com/epochDM. Here you'll have access to some exclusive videos, including a behind the scenes of the video you've just watched. Thank you for your support, and see you in next video.